In global politics, everyone loves to talk about values, principles, and moral high ground. But sometimes the receipts tell a very different story. And this week, Russian President Vladimir Putin just dropped one of the biggest truth bombs of the year, right in the middle of Washington's tariff war and energy hypocrisy meltdown. On the eve of his two-day state visit to India, Putin took a direct jab at US President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff campaign, and he did not hold back. He said, if the United States has the right to buy our fuel, why shouldn't India have the same privilege? Boom. One sentence and the entire Western narrative on sanctions, morality, and global leadership started shaking. Let's break down how Putin exposed a quiet American secret, why Europe is paying the highest price, and how India and China are refusing to bow down. Stay with me for the next few minutes because this is where geopolitics gets brutally real. Welcome back to TFI Global. Putin's interview with India today was supposed to be a routine, friendly message, standard diplomatic talk, and the usual. But then he was asked about Trump imposing a massive 50% tariffs on India for buying discounted Russian oil. And Putin simply said, if America can buy Russian nuclear fuel, why can't India buy Russian oil? This wasn't just shade, this was a geopolitical uppercut. Because the US, which lectures countries, punishes them, threatens secondary sanctions and pressures allies, is itself quietly buying Russian uranium to power its own nuclear reactors. The same Trump who tells India, don't buy Russian oil. The same Trump who tells Europe, stop buying Russian gas. And the same Trump who warns countries, do business with Russia and pay the price. Yet, behind the scenes, Washington is cutting checks to Moscow. Here's the part Trump hates to talk about. America relies on Russian nuclear fuel. A lot of it actually. In 2024, the US imported around $800 million worth of Russian uranium. Nearly 25% of all US uranium imports came from Russia. And projections for 2025 say it could hit $1.2 billion. Russia is the second largest supplier of enriched uranium for American nuclear plants. Even though the US passed a ban on Russian uranium imports in 2024, surprise, it doesn't kick in fully until 2028. And guess what? There are waivers, lots of waivers, valid through 2027. Companies like Centrus Energy told the US government, sorry, we literally don't have enough fuel without Russia. And Washington agreed. So the US keeps buying. Putin called it a fuel. And he's right. US nuclear plants are running on Russian uranium while Trump lectures India for buying Russian oil. That's the dictionary definition of hypocrisy. Now let's talk about what triggered Trump. India buys Russian crude because it's cheap, reliable, and helps control inflation for 1.4 billion people. This helped India maintain low fuel prices, stabilize its economy, and continue its growth despite global shocks. So what did the US do? It slapped 50% tariffs on Indian goods in August 2025. And Trump directly said, these tariffs are because India buys Russian oil. Meanwhile, America buys Russian uranium. The irony is nuclear-level radioactive. And here's the funniest part. The tariffs didn't break India. Quarterly GDP still shot up 8.2% growth rate, making India one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. India didn't bow down. China doesn't bow down because both countries see what Washington is doing. Not sanctions for morality about some Ukraine war, but sanctions for market control. Now let's zoom out and look at Europe, the biggest loser in the Trump game. The US forced the European Union to cut off cheap Russian gas. What happened next? Europe's energy prices skyrocketed, the economy in recession, industries collapsing, German manufacturing, the backbone of Europe, almost went into an emergency mode. And where did Europe turn? To expensive American LNG. So Europe cut off its own legs and paid the US for crutches. In short, European Union is on a free fall, while USA trade with Russia is growing by 20%. While European Union leaders like Ursula Kaza pushed sanctions that hurt Europeans far more than Russians, many analysts say The European Union isolated Russia and isolated itself from cheap, reliable energy. Let's be honest, the US isn't angry because India buys Russian oil. The real reasons are: first, protecting America's own energy market. Cheap Russian energy threatens US LNG and oil exports. Second, supporting Gulf allies. Countries like Saudi Arabia want high prices. Russian discounts mess that up. Third, keeping global dominance. If nations freely buy Russian energy, the US loses leverage. And Ukraine? That's the moral blanket used to cover economic motives. Putin sees it, India sees it. China also sees it. Only Europe pretends not to. Putin's visit to New Delhi signals something deeper, which is a partnership that won't be shaken by Western pressure. The two leaders aim to boost bilateral trade to $100 billion by 2030, expand joint weapons production, build the Chennai-Vladivostok maritime corridor, strengthen energy and space cooperation. This is not just business, it's a statement that countries will not be bullied into abandoning sovereign choices. Putin's message was simple and cutting. America buys our fuel, so why shouldn't India? Trump wants the world to obey rules that it doesn't follow itself. Europe obeyed and suffered. India didn't and grew stronger. China didn't and expanded its influence. The global power balance is shifting, and this time the hypocrisy is too obvious to hide. Thanks for watching.